They are in an in-between place, not where they were, and not yet arrived at where they are going. They are in between, and in between can be scary. The familiarity of the past is behind, and the security of what is ahead has not been realized. But there's no need to panic, because there is nothing really confronting them except their uncertainty. For now they are safe, camped in front of the Red Sea, and that is enough. Yeah, the Red Sea is in front of them, but even that is not an immediate problem. They have time to figure it out. They have time to go around it or find a better place to cross it. They can build boats and float over it or just stay camped by it. This obstacle in front of them, the Red Sea, is not really the problem. The real problem is the past coming behind them. Strange when you think about it. No one panics until the past comes up, until the Egyptians come wanting to take them back. The Red Sea caused no concern until the past reared up behind them. Now, like a moth to a flame, the Israelites want to go back with the Egyptians, because even a bad past can be comforting. Is that what makes us want to go back or lose ground or regress or just give up? The familiarity of the past, even a bad past? Because when the past offers us the same old thing, even some miserable things we beg God to deliver us from, at least we know what to expect. We know the devil we are dealing with. At least we have developed some survival skills and some coping mechanisms. At least we have learned how to live there with them, dealing with that. At least that is what we tell ourselves. And that is what ultimately keeps us bound and blocked and broke and broken. This delusion that we are tough when in reality we are just afraid. We stay stuck or we go back, not because we are strong. We stay, even go back, because we are scared to go forward. And maybe it's a good past that is drawing us back, making us turn around and think it best to give up now and surrender and settle, because the truth of the matter is a good past can be confining. It'll lull us into thinking that we have reached our limit, that there's nowhere to go or grow until we become complacent in where we are and what we have done and who we have become, and then we start to settle for the past. That's the challenge of the in-between place. The discomfort of transition. We have to decide if we will tip over into something new, something unseen, unknown, unexpected, or settle for what we knew and experienced before, regardless of whether or not that experience was good or bad. So here we are, perhaps camped at our own Red Seas. We've already come a long way, but we're not quite there yet. Here we are. Maybe out of the bad relationship, but not quite healed yet. We're working on our finances, but not quite out of debt yet. We're going to church, but not quite saved yet, or a member yet. Or stepping out on God, but not quite at our destination yet. We are in between, in transition, and the past is coming for us. The old flame that burned us before is now looking hot. Few dollars in our pockets are making us want to spend and not save. And we're feeling a little stable now that we've been coming to church, and so we're thinking about going back to the world and just show up for a word every now and then. We've been doing it God's way, but now we have some ideas of our own on how to take it to the next level. Or maybe we've had a good pastor and have already decided that the new one just won't be as good. The past is coming for us. Past relationships, habits, ways of handling things, attitudes, modes of action, successes, joys, achievements, they are all coming for us, inviting us, compelling us, chasing after us to go back. And now we have to decide if we will settle for the past or go forward. Because a good past will tempt us to settle out of loyalty. We don't want our moving forward to reflect poorly on what happened or what was given or what was accomplished before. Actually, we are better than what we used to be. We have gone further than we imagined. We have done what we could never thought we could do. And so now we are starting to feel like moving even further or growing even more would seem ungrateful or unappreciative or uppity. And we decide to quit while we are ahead. I mean, really, why keep going when here is pretty good? How dare we want more? How dare we do more? How dare we desire more after all we have already been given? And so we settle, becoming living monuments to the past when the whole purpose of our learning and our growing and our doing and our being and our becoming was to prepare us to go forward. Yeah, a good past can hold us with loyalty, and an okay past will tempt us to settle out of laziness. We just don't feel like going forward. Don't feel like trying to figure out how to go forward or ramping up to go forward. And perhaps the only reason why we've gotten this far is because some people dragged us out of Egypt with them. If the truth were told, we would have stayed in Goshen. We would have stayed in bondage, except that the people who put up with us were ready to go, and so we had to go with them or be left behind. But we have been doing the bare minimum ever since. If there's a shortcut, we can find it. A loophole, we will jump through it. A way out, we will take it. A chance to get over, we will go for it. Some of us are part of the one less crowd. We always just do one less than expected, always a step behind. If we show up, we don't stand. If we stand, we don't sing. If we sing, we don't stand. If we pray, we don't fast. If we fast, we won't give. If we give, we won't tithe. If we tithe, we won't serve. If we serve, we won't pray. We actually want to go back to less, to little, to leftovers, because going forward requires work. And all we need is an excuse, a reason, or just an obstacle to try to convince ourselves or others that we just can't, when the truth is we won't go forward. We see the past creeping up on us, and we are glad. Glad to surrender to what was rather than fight for what will be. Yes, a good past will tempt us to settle out of loyalty. An okay past will tempt us to settle out of laziness. And a bad past will tempt us to settle out of low self-esteem. Like the Israelites, a bad past will beat a slave mentality into us until we are not people. We're just objects for somebody else's use. And our worth comes from however we can benefit them. Our sense of self comes from what they think of us. Our esteem is based on whether or not they want us. Because as slaves, we have no independent, intrinsic value. It is always connected to them, what they say and what they think and what they want us to do. And the slave mentality makes us think we don't really deserve anything, nor can we get anything or go anywhere without them. In our minds, we need the Egyptians because all that we are and all that we have is based on our relationship with them. And even though we don't like them and we don't like being mistreated by them and we've been complaining that we don't want to be with them, we still don't know who we are and are downright afraid to be without them. And so this in-between place makes us want to go back to them. That's what happens to the Israelites. They look at who they are and conclude they are slaves. They look at where they are in between the Red Sea in front of them and the Egyptians behind them, and they conclude that they have nowhere to go but back. And meanwhile, God looks at who they are, that they are the children of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and heirs to their promises. And God looks at where they are at the brink of the promised land, closer than what they can imagine, on the verge of being free, about to enter a new season with the Red Sea in front of them and the Egyptians behind them, and in effect tells them, you have nowhere to go but forward. Yes, go forward, because they and you and me and we are not here to be defeated or drowned or to desert God. There were enough enemies and bondage and bad choices and blatant sin and backsliding in the past to take us out by now. And if the past was all God had for us, if the past was the best God had to offer, God could have left us in Egypt to our own devices with those same people doing that same stuff. If death and destruction and defeat was to be our lot, God could have done it quicker, easier, and with our own help back in Egypt. Because in Egypt we were choosing and speaking and dealing and doing and daring death to take us rather than life to claim us. And therefore God could have let us reap what we had sown and collected the wages of our sin, which was death, but God didn't. So that even though the Red Sea is in front of us and we may have no idea about how to make it through, or what's up ahead looks impossible to get through, that if we go any further or wade any deeper, it will overwhelm us. Understand we have come too far and God has done too much to give up now. And no matter where we are, and no matter what it looks like, and no matter how it feels, the solution to the situation is never to desert God. Now is not the time to leave the Lord. Now is not the time to serve the Egyptians. And now is not the time to turn back. And now is not the time to panic. Now is the time to stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Because we are at this moment to be delivered. And I'm just here to tell somebody this morning to quit looking back. It's time to quit looking backward and longing for what is behind, because even when we cannot figure out how to go forward, we still need to face forward. That's why it's turnaround time in your life. You are perhaps facing the wrong way, and before some things get turned around, you have to turn around first. I mean, so often we are wondering where God is and when God will show up, and maybe we are missing God because we are looking in the wrong direction. Maybe we need to consider the fact that God is not working behind us. God is working up in front of us. So turn around. We have to turn around because we already know who God was and we already know what God did. But now it's time to see who God is. Did you ever notice that what the Bible tells us is who God is, not who God was? God is a refuge and a fortress, a very present help in the time of trouble. God is a dwelling place in all generations, from everlasting to everlasting. God is God. The Lord is our shepherd, and we shall not want. The Lord is our keeper and a shade at our right hands. The Lord is king, is rock, he is strength. The Lord is a strong tower. The Lord is our light and our salvation. The Lord is the stronghold of our lives. The Lord is merciful and gracious. The Lord is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. The Lord is high above the nations and exalted and good and greatly to be praised. God was a burden bearer in Egypt, but they had to turn around to see God be a way maker at the Red Sea. God was a protector in the past, but they had to turn around and see God provide in the present. God was a help in our past, and now we've got to turn around and see God heal in the present. God might have opened some doors in our past, but now it's time to turn around and see God open the windows of heaven in the present. God might have saved us in the past, but now we need to turn around and see God supply a need in the present. God might have given a breakthrough in the past, but now we need to turn around and see God give a blessing in the present. God answered some prayers in the past, but now we need to turn around so that God can anoint us in the present. God did it in the past. Now turn around to see God do it again, because God can still do what eyes haven't seen and ears have not heard. God can do greater than we can think or ask or imagine. God can do what is impossible for mortals. God can still do all things well. You know the end of the story. God blows back the wet walls of the Red Sea and they walk across on dry land. And you know the end of another story, how they hung him high and stretched him wide. But early Sunday morning, he got up with all power in his hands. God can do it. God will do it. So if you have found yourself in transition, in between here and there, between now and not yet, if when you find yourself in an Old Testament situation with the past coming behind you and the future blocked before you, then ask yourself a New Testament question. What then are we to say about these things? If God is for us, who is against us? He who did not withhold his own son, but gave him up for all of us, will he not with him also give us everything else? Don't look back. Turn around. because you have nowhere to go but forward.